Peter Greenberg's live global travel update is presented to you by Colette. Discover the world. Guided travel since 1918.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday for this special edition of Global Travel Update. You may remember we were talking to you just 2 days ago from Seoul in South Korea, but because of emerging and fast-moving global events, I thought it was a good idea to do it again and do it soon. So we went from Seoul to another city that starts with an S, Santa Fe, New Mexico, where we're here actually shooting part of our global multi-part series on Hidden Route 66 that you'll see later this year on PBS, Amazon, Apple TV, and YouTube. But for the moment, we're talking about news of the world. And of course, happy to get all your comments as well and answer your questions. The ceasefire that may be expiring soon in Iran is not doing anything to help the global travel industry, and it's not doing anything to help the global airline industry. We're seeing huge schedule triage of anywhere from 20 to 30% of flights being pulled off airline schedules. We're seeing this around the globe. Everywhere, everybody from Qantas in Australia to Air Canada in Toronto. Air Canada just canceled. And when I say pulled off the schedule, I mean eliminated. Air Canada just canceled their flights from Toronto and Montreal to JFK through June. It's not just loads, it's fuel. We're seeing Norse canceling all their flights from Los Angeles to Scandinavia. Period. We're seeing Qantas cutting back. We're seeing Thai Airways. We're seeing even Korean Airlines. They're all readjusting their schedule. They're trying to pivot as fast as they can. Delta has already announced they're cutting back capacity and growth. This is at a time where normally every airline would be announcing all new summer routes. Those are now in the balance. We don't know if they will make it to summer. They may not even inaugurate those routes based on the flow of fuel. So the fact that they're going to announce a ceasefire or not, it may affect a knee-jerk reaction on Wall Street, but it doesn't affect the price of fuel yet. Maybe the price of oil, but not the price of jet fuel. That's still very well up there. Not to mention the fact that the bag fees now have been increased by every major airline to the point where if you're checking in 2 bags, the cost of those bags might actually exceed the price of your airline ticket on certain routes. That's how crazy it's become. All right, so we're talking about what's going on there, but now an update on 2 airlines that need to be reported on, Spirit and JetBlue. Spirit, the rumor was they could actually be liquidated by today. It hasn't happened yet. They went to the federal government and asked for a bailout. That is highly unlikely to happen because if you run the numbers, even if you bail them out, what is their ability to pay it back? It's a loan. They don't have that ability. They've already given back a lot of their fleet. They've basically cut back at least 30 to 40% of their network and their schedule. And the actual increase in fuel price, that was the catalyst. That was the tipping point that forced them to consider not Chapter 11, which a lot of airlines do, no, Chapter 7, liquidation. So that could happen this week. Now, what if you're holding a ticket on Spirit or a reservation on Spirit down the road, right? We like to book our tickets in advance. 2 things are going on. Number one, you should hold on to that ticket. The odds of another airline honoring that ticket are not high. What you need to do is something called trip stacking. Go out and buy a fully refundable ticket on a competing airline on the same route. If the Spirit flight operates, refund that ticket. If the Spirit flight doesn't operate or the airline ceases to operate, then at least you're guaranteed a seat when everybody else is already going to buy seats and you may not be, able to do that. That's basically your plan A and plan B for the moment. Now, the case for JetBlue, it's been floated out there. They may be declaring Chapter 11. They may have to file for bankruptcy. Again, all related to fuel costs, but their previous financial situation. Same thing with Spirit. The fuel situation has been the trigger that can drive Spirit into liquidation or JetBlue into bankruptcy. JetBlue is currently paying $600 million a year in interest on debt of $8 billion. But it's about to get worse because the fuel bill for JetBlue may raise their debt to $9 billion. What does that mean? Any airline, including United, which was rumored to want to buy Spirit, that might want to take them over, why would they want to assume that much debt? The answer is they don't. And here's the ironic part. Both Spirit and JetBlue have a relatively young airline fleet. They both fly the same kind of equipment, Airbus. And so what's interesting here is if you're a major airline and you want to go out and buy planes, if you went to Airbus or Boeing, you'd have to wait for 3 years. All of a sudden, you wait for Spirit to liquidate. You have relatively young Airbuses that you pick up at a fire sale, and you already have the pilots that were trained by Spirit to fly the same kind of equipment you're flying. So nobody's rushing in to rescue anybody. They're sort of circling the wagons, trying to figure out what assets they want to buy at discounted prices. That's where we are. And we may see other failures, mergers, consolidations, and liquidations in the days and weeks ahead, even if the ceasefire holds. There's been that much damage done to airlines that were operating on already thin margins. So obviously we're going to be following that and getting back to you on that. That's an important consideration that's going to be watched every hour. Do not think for a moment that there are bankruptcy attorneys heading to Delaware just waiting for the green light to file. This is not a good scene. And I'm not trying to panic you. It's a business reality. Speaking of business reality or business fantasy, you may have heard the story last week that United was considering buying American. Now this, in my entire history as a journalist covering these things, in its current construction, I'd have to say it's not going to fly, every pun intended. It would create the largest airline in the world. The anti-competitive and monopolistic issues it raises are quite obvious. You better be aware that Delta Airlines is on Capitol Hill right now lobbying against it. American has already made a statement last night that they're not interested. Although American Airlines is not doing well financially, they're basically a break-even airline right now. We'll have to see what happens there. A far more likely scenario a couple of weeks ago would have been United buying or merging with JetBlue. Why? Because a couple of years ago, United Airlines made a boneheaded decision to pull out of JFK and consolidate all their East Coast operations in Newark. In doing so, they lost a huge amount of market share and a huge amount of premium traffic. And then they couldn't get back into JFK because those slots were taken. And guess who they were taken by? The dominant carrier at JFK, JetBlue. So the only way United gets back to JFK is through JetBlue. Now, they already announced a so-called very loose partnership with JetBlue, not an official one, where JetBlue is going to give them 5 slots so that United later this year, could actually operate 5 flights a day out of JFK. That's just the beginning. They also announced a situation where you earn United points on a JetBlue flight and vice versa. That's just the prelude to an attempt, which may or may not happen anymore based on what's going on with jet fuel, of United taking over JetBlue. So we'll be watching that one as well. Okay, now this one got some interest when I posted it online, so I'm going to show it to you again, and then I'm going to explain it to you again. But before I show it to you, let me set the scene. I've been talking about this particular issue for quite some time. And the particular issue is how airplanes get certified as airworthy. Now, since aviation began, how did that happen? With one exception, at least in this country. In order for an airplane, a new aircraft, to be certified as airworthy, the manufacturer would take a prototype, put it on a test bed, and then take every component part, every single moving part, every single mechanical part, every single material used in that plane to failure. That's how they could figure out how fast it could fly, how high, how hot, how cold, how many cycles it needed to go through to prevent metal fatigue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's how they wrote the manuals. And then it got certified after very rigorous stress testing, right? To failure. Here's the exception. When Boeing developed the 787, it was a plane built out of mostly composite materials, not metal. And Boeing went to the FAA. Here we go with the FAA again. My biggest issue with them is they basically roll over and play dead. They went to the FAA and said, for the 787, a completely new aircraft with completely new materials, never tested before, can we get certified on computer, not on the test bed? And the FAA said, okay. That's how it got certified. Now, there are a lot of things to recommend the 787, and conversely, Airbus then developed their plane built out of mostly composite materials, the A350. And when they saw that the FAA said it was okay to do it on a computer, they did the exact same thing. They got permission to do certification on computer in France. Here's the problem. You don't know what's going to happen. You can only do it theoretically. It's not real world. And when you deal with composite materials, you have clearly no idea. So now, let me talk about the photo that I posted. Let's post that photo. This is my flight last week from Denver to London on United Airlines Flight 27 on board a 787 Dreamliner. You see the tape on the wings. By the way, the tape extended all the way out on both sides on both wings. Not a good look, right? What was that tape for? We'll get to what the tape is in a second. The reason why there was a tape on there is because what did the airlines soon learn about planes built with composite materials? They tend to delaminate. They peel back. Not just on the 787, but on the A350. I can tell you because I was a witness to it on the tarmac in Doha, brand new A350s flying for Qatar, which were grounded because the delamination was so severe, the wings were peeling off the surface levels. You could almost see through them, through the fuel tanks. The FAA didn't know what to do, but they then realized that they had to do something. So what you're seeing on that wing is not duct tape. What you're seeing on that wing is speed tape. I've talked about this before. A lot of you responded to this photo by saying, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, guys, I do. It's called speed tape, and it's an approved fix by the FAA. Now, the fact that it's an approved fix doesn't mean it's the answer. It's an approved temporary fix. What's the permanent fix? Somebody needs to tell me, because I haven't found it yet. And here's the deal. You won't know till you know. Now, did my plane land safely? Yes. Did other planes fixed with speed tape land safely? Yes. Is that the answer? No, the answer goes back to how the plane got certified in the first place on computer. That's not real world. That's not acceptable. And guess what? All the fingers then point to what? The FAA. I'd like the FAA to come and talk to me about that. Now, am I telling you not to fly the plane? Nope. Am I telling you the plane's unsafe? No. I'm telling you there's an underlying problem here that has yet to be fixed. And that bothers me. Forget the aesthetics. Let's talk about how the plane got certified and why we now see speed tape on the wings of a lot of 787s and a lot of A350s done by Airbus flying all over the world. All right. Having said that, now I'll say hello to a couple of people. All right. Linda's saying hi from Naples. Patrick's back. He's in Las Vegas, Sin City. Cynthia Randall, hello from Malibu. Hello, Cynthia. All right. Patty's saying bubonic plague outbreak my last trip to Santa Fe. Excuse me? Would you like me to froth at the mouth? Patty, I need you to explain that. Okay. Raymond Bixon and all the Bixonettes in New Jersey. Okay. Colleen is saying, greetings from Pigalle sketchy 9th arrondissement. She's in Paris. SFO just won the the private side for the world's most beautiful airport. I was there earlier today. I flew Seoul to San Francisco on board, by the way, a United Airlines 787. Didn't see the speed tape on that plane because that plane was only 1 year old. The plane we flew from Denver to London was 8 years old. That's a young airplane. That's the one that had the tape. Here's what I like about the San Francisco airport. It really does work, although the runways have some issues. You saw what the FAA just did, canceling the parallel approach, which means that half the runways are not being used right now. Not good for on-time reliability. But in any case, I love the terminals. I love the fact that you can go from one terminal to another without necessarily having to go out and clear security again, unless you're coming into the international terminal. I also love the idea that in some terminals, they've got great water machines where you can refill your bottles of water. No one wants to spend $9 at an airport store for water. So yeah, they did a great job. Okay. Scott's saying, glad to be tuning in this afternoon from the Metro Rock Island commuter train from Chicago to Joliet. Okay. Shannon's saying hello from Anaheim. Okay. All right. Okay. There's a difference. Yes, Patty. She just wrote me. There's a difference between speed tape and duct tape. What do pilots and flight attendants carry on board the planes these days for unruly passengers? Right? We have handcuffs, right? The flex tie handcuffs and duct tape. How many times have we seen unruly passengers taped to their chair and flex tied handcuffs? Okay. And Jim and Harriet did come in. They were always there from Richmond, Virginia. Nice to talk to you guys. So let me be clear about this so we can avoid any confusion. I can give you probably 20 instances where the FAA is confronted with a problem that they acknowledge as a problem, and there's a solution available, and then they're lobbied about economic impact in implementing that solution by either the manufacturer or the operator. We're dealing with life and death issues here and airline safety. Again, if there's a problem and you identify the problem, and even better, you identify the solution, and the solution can be implemented, why are you pausing on implementing that solution? Because it might cost the operators some more money. If you don't implement that solution, that borders, in my book, on criminal negligence, right? Wouldn't that be in your case too? Remember the 25-cent gas tank plug on the Pinto? Let's go back and take a look at that. They knew they had a problem with exploding gas tanks. They knew they could fix it with a 25-cent part. They didn't want to spend the money, the economic impact of a 25-cent part to prevent any more exploding fuel tanks. We all know what happened after that. People died, and multi-million-dollar lawsuits that Ford lost. There are lessons there. Lessons to be learned, but most importantly, lessons to be applied. Now, will I continue to fly the 787? Yes. Will I continue to be concerned that they haven't fixed the underlying problem? You bet. I'm waiting to see what the FAA is going to do with the MD-11s and metal fractures. I'm waiting to see what the FAA is going to do on transponders, on helicopters, and airspace above Reagan. I'm waiting to see what the FAA is going to do about runway incursions and taxiway and runway and tarmac capacity at major U.S. airports. We've already identified the problem, and it's very easy to identify the solution. What are they going to do about it? I'll give you the wildest one, which doesn't involve commercial aviation, but it does involve aviation. I covered a story many, many years ago. And it was a continuing story, which, by the way, is continued till today, about crashes of private planes, right? Pipers and Cherokees and Cessnas, you name it, and survivable crashes where people died. One of the reasons? Rescuers had no idea where the planes were. And by the time they found them, it was too late. right? By the time they got to the wreckage, even though people had survived the actual impact. So after years and years and years of lobbying from safety organizations, the FAA finally said that planes now had to be equipped. I'm talking about the private pilot planes, had to be equipped with something called an ELT, an emergency locator transmitter, an ELT, right? Where do they put it? In the tail. Why? Because that's the most likely part of the plane to survive intact, right? And what powers that ELT? Batteries. So the FAA thought they did their job. No, they didn't, because what did we learn right after that? There was no provision in the rule for the maintenance of the ELT or the replacement on a regular basis of the batteries. So people continued to die, and what did they find in the wreckage? Inoperable ELTs because they had no batteries that worked. Did the FAA move to fix that quickly? They did not. How much does a battery cost? This is stupid, right? I'm not talking about arguing helmet laws on motorcycles. I'm talking about air safety here, where you have a problem, you identified the problem, you identified the solution, and you can implement it, and they choose not to do it. In a future global travel update, I'm going to invite my pal Greg Feith. He's the former lead investigator for the National Transportation Safety Board. He and I worked on many, many accidents, ranging from ValueJet in the Everglades to the Concorde crash in Paris to American Airlines 191. I mean, we can go, you name it, United Airlines Flight 232. And in every single case, the lessons that were learned when they got to the FAA were either slow walked or not applied at all. And I'd like you to hear it from Greg to see what you could do as consumers and as travelers to lobby the FAA to do their job. By the way, I mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. Every year, the National Transportation Safety Board publishes, and it's free of charge, it's available to the public. It's a public document. Their 10 most wanted list, right? All the recommendations, the urgent safety recommendations they've made to agencies like the FAA that were not enacted for no understandable reason other than economic impact to the operator or the manufacturer, which should no longer be an issue once you can identify that you can solve the problem. So, be that as it is, wanted you to see that. All right, now, let's move on. Hold on, we're scrolling down here. Patty says, emergency personnel must drive slowly and carefully on runways. That's not the issue, Patty. Emergency personnel sometimes have to drive very fast on runways and taxiways, but they have to have clearance to do it. They have to be speaking on frequencies that everybody's on, not dedicated frequencies that only some people can hear. They have to carry transponders in their vehicle that alert automatic possible collision alerts that will light up in the tower and even also light up on the runways and the taxiways. That was not what was happening at LaGuardia a couple of weeks ago. That Port Authority fire truck didn't have the transponder. That military helicopter at Reagan more than a year ago was not transponding on the state-of-the-art transponder they should have had, so the controller in the tower only had a vague idea of where that helicopter was. Big problem. Have they fixed it yet? No. Here it is. Problem, solution, implementation. What am I missing? All right. Now, during normal operations, of course, everybody needs to drive slowly and carefully. Same thing with taxiing planes. But you take a look at the distance between planes at jetways. That's why you see all the marshals with the orange cones on either side. And they do it slowly because in some cases, you're only 10 to 15 feet from wingtip to wingtip. No margin for error. But it's worse because if every plane is landing at 4 in the afternoon or 8 in the morning, there's nowhere for them to go. They're stacked up on the taxiways. They're stacked up on the tarmac. It's gridlock. And one false move, there you have it, a runway incursion. That gets down to scheduling. All right, let's keep going here. Okay. Sandy says, greetings from Charlotte. We're waiting aboard the Lufthansa flight. We talked about this, Sandy. And you know, up until 3 days ago, Lufthansa was on strike. They paused the strike and you're actually taking off. Congratulations. Okay. Let's see. John is saying hi from Miami and hello from Philadelphia from Happy To. Okay, Happy To. Nice to hear from you. Now, moment of levity here. I'm one of those people who usually disobeys all airport signage. I'm a contrarian. I depart from the arrivals area. I arrive at the departures area. I do. I save a lot of time that way. I can explain that if you like. I only wear my seatbelt in flight, not during takeoff and landing. And I know a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy. I'll explain that too. Times have changed. Speeds of takeoffs and landings have changed. There's a reason for that. It's based on accident reporting and an aftermath of survivable hard landings and survivable aborted takeoffs. So we can discuss that too. But every once in a while, there's an airport sign. I'm sure it was well-intentioned, but got to make you laugh. How about this one from Germany? There you go. Yep. No comment needed, but I wish them all very well on the flight. Maybe they'll need some zip tie handcuffs, but that's another story. All right, let's move along. As I mentioned, we're here in Santa Fe, about to start shooting our multi-part PBS series called Hidden Route 66. We've already shot it in parts of Oklahoma, in Texas, in California. We're continuing to shoot in New Mexico, then Missouri, then Illinois, and it'll be on the air in November, which actually commemorates the 100th anniversary of the Mother Road that connected Chicago all the way west to the Santa Monica Pier in Los Angeles. That's where Route 66 ends. But here we are in the oldest state capital in America. I mean, the city was founded back in 1610. How about that? And you'll see me on another global travel update next week. But I did want to just get into an earlier one today with you as a special edition to be able to tell you what's going on in the world of aviation in the wake of the Iran conflict. One other housekeeping note, our radio show coming up this Saturday will be from a very special hotel. I call it a very thoughtful hotel in a place that deals with a lot of thought, Mountain View, California, in Silicon Valley, so to speak. And the name of the hotel is the Ameswell. Not a coincidence about the name Ames, because it's located very close to NASA's Ames Research Center with one of the coolest dirigible hangars you'll ever see, still there, among many other things. We'll talk to you a little bit later about that in the week, about the show coming from the Ameswell Hotel this coming Saturday. In the meantime, stay on top of our email, our website, petergreenberg.com, for any more breaking news on airlines that are flying and airlines that are not. Because it's a very fluid situation and it's changing by the hour. And no matter what happens in the Straits of Hormuz, even if they opened it up tomorrow fully, it will not affect in any beneficial way your travel experience or what you pay for an airline ticket for at least 8 weeks, which coincides with what? High summer season. So it may not affect it at all, except the prices are going up. Remember what I said about trip stacking? If you're currently holding a ticket on Spirit, protect yourself by buying a fully refundable ticket on a competing carrier. You may not have to use it, but you may be very glad you have it if you do need to use it. That's number one. Number two, remember this. If an airline cancels your flight for any reason that's under their control, that excludes weather, then you're entitled to an immediate and full refund, immediate, to your original form of purchase. Don't forget that. However, if you cancel it, you get a credit for the amount that you paid for the ticket, good for a year. Not good for a year from when you canceled it, but good for a year from when you first bought it. So if you're buying tickets 4 months in advance and then you cancel it the day before the flight, your credit's only valid for 8 months. So remember that math. And speaking of that, one more thing, since we're getting ready to travel again this summer, I've talked to you about the need for renewing your passport if it's got less than 6 months of validity or you're running out of pages. Now, passport's good for 10 years, right? But families with kids, not the case. Children's passports are only good for 5 years. So go check it out right now. Don't assume that your kid's passport expires when yours does. It may not. And by the way, while you can apply for your newer renewal passport online, you can't do that for your kids. You got to do that one in person. So remember that as well. I'll see you Saturday on the radio. In the meantime, stay tuned for more developing stories about what's going on in the world. Let's hope things get resolved faster because it's messing things up for a lot of people, a lot of airlines, and a lot of pocketbooks. I'll see you later this week on the radio. In the meantime, have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you later from Santa Fe, New Mexico on PBS.